Welcome to the March 10, 2020 meeting of the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to invite you to join me in a salute to the flag before we start proceedings. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you, everybody. For those of you who normally join us here, we're going to do a little bit of a break in the process here and go directly to an item that is a bit of a sad one for us, which is to honor the passing of Jerry Scott. And I'm going to toss it to Supervisor Bohn.
I've known Jerry for quite a few years, not as many as some of the other people out here, but he leaves quite a bit of wake behind him. Founding counsel for the Humboldt Bay Harbor District for 35 years. I got to coach the Scott Robinson Pavlich Hoopster basketball team for 4 years, and he would come to the games and tell me what I did wrong. So Jerry was always great. You'd introduce him to somebody. So, Jerry, I'd like you to meet. And he says, was your uncle the backup guard for the Eureka High football team in 1959? I don't know. He was, I was telling somebody the other day, I was explaining to him, and I said, I guarantee you he knows more about your family than you do. That's why he was past president of the Historical Society and passed away Friday night, Saturday morning. He had lunch at the Ingomar on Friday with Mary, and the waitress was telling me Saturday, he said, I couldn't believe it. He was just always Jerry. And he leaves quite a bit of legacy. I think his father was district attorney back in the 30s and 40s. Is that right here? Maggie showed me a picture on the wall of him. So it was quite a wake he leaves, quite a testament, and quite a shock. It was. I talked to 3 of his neighbors, and 2 of them hadn't heard, and one of them had sent me a note. And they all talked about. They always talked to Jerry after he came back from his physical therapy. So I don't know when he ever got to work, because he stopped and talked to everybody. And it's the overused line, but it should be right next to his picture. He never met a stranger, because he knew all your relatives, whether you knew you had them or not. So I know Sheriff Hansel wanted to say something and mention the family, and he leaves quite a legacy with his family, who some of them are sitting here today, his wife, Marion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Supervisor Bohn. Sheriff Fennell, thank you for addressing this today and opening the Board of Supervisors meeting to honor Jeremiah Scott. He truly was a legend here in Humboldt County, and I just echo everything that Rex just said. And to the family, what a legacy. Mary, Stuart, Greg, who's not here, Catherine, all pillars of the community. And so this is a deep loss, and just want to know that the people of the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office and County of Humboldt are just with you, grieving with you today. And so I just appreciate the honor. The flags are flown at half-mast today, as well as the Board of Supervisors meeting today. So I just really, really appreciate that honor that we're giving Jeremiah Scott today. And then thank you to the family. Yep.
Maggie, through the chair.
Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to speak, and my prayers to the family. From when I started in January 1994, I was walking down the hallway outside the courtrooms, and I heard this booming voice, hey, are you that new prosecutor? And he stopped and talked with me and welcomed me to the community. And for years after that, when I'd meet people and I'd say, how do you know Mr. Scott? It was a similar experience. He would get out of his car if he saw someone walking and talk with them and welcome them. He was so remarkable. And what I think is so remarkable and speaks to his character is he practiced law in a small community for over 5 decades, and I've never heard anyone utter an unkind word about Jerry. He was such a wonderful man. For me, he will continue to be an example of our responsibilities to care for and serve each other and our community. And my prayers go out to his wife, Mary, his 3 children, McGregor, Stuart and Catherine, their spouses, and of course, Jerry's grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Maggie and I were talking this morning, and the thing we mentioned most, we're going to miss the phone calls. Every 2 or 3 weeks, I'd get a phone call. Rex, what's going on with? Did you know? And it's just, and then we'd talk for a while, and he says, gotta go. And he'd go, and I'm going to miss that. He was a great supporter of local politics, and he was just, like I said, he was so proud of what he accomplished at the Harbor District. All the big accomplishments they've done were under his legal mind and legal guidance. So with that, Mary, Stuart, Kathy, known you guys since you were kids and everything else, but just his devotion to everything Humboldt just is a lot to say. And so we're proud to basically doing something to open the meeting and close it in his honor, so it'll always be in the record. So, and thank you guys. I'll give you this.
And I want to thank you very much for being here today to help us honor your husband and your father. And I didn't know Jerry as well as Rex did, but I know that he was extremely proud of his children and his family. And I know I got a call telling me that Catherine Scott was his daughter, and I should be aware of that. But I really, really grieve with you, and so sorry for your. Please accept my condolences.
And Judge Gillerin, did you want to say anything, or since I just called you out?
But I agree with everything that everybody said here today about Jerry. I was talking to my wife about it last night over dinner, and we were both shocked, and she said to me, he was such a people person. And I really thought that really summed it up quite well. My first meeting with Jerry, I was aware of who Jerry was, but I was having a meeting with Michael Robinson when I was trying to get hired onto Jerry's law firm. And I was in Michael's office, and kind of the same as Maggie, but I was sitting in a chair, and in came just this enormous person, and the very first thing he said is, "You're Caloran." And I said, "Yes," and he goes, "An Irishman." And I said, "Yes, sir." And I was hired. Jerry was the most ethical lawyer that I've ever known. In fact, anytime we would have discussions about where we stood on various cases, we would go to Jerry, both Michael and I, to ask his opinion. And I would say 10 times out of 10. I know the usual saying is 9 times out of 10, but 10 times out of 10, we would do what he would counsel. I'll miss Jerry. He was, as everyone has indicated, just a wonderful person. And I think that's what I'll say for now. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Your Honor. And I'm going to miss the plaid sport coats and the short pants. He could wear a plaid sport coat and a tie and a pair of short pants better than any guy I know, and he didn't care what anybody said. So anyway, I really appreciate the chair for indulging me on this. It's not very often that we lose such a pillar of our society and somebody as Jerry was a big man, but he was bigger in life. And I think, so I want to thank the chairman, Fennell, for that. And I know that Virginia's probably going to want to say something, because he liked prime rib too, didn't he?
I'd say so. And I think you forgot to mention the suspenders, which was also part of the fashion motif. But yeah, no, I remember Jerry most from actually probably from when I was growing up, and I didn't realize it then. For those of you, my family spans many years, and my brothers are 20 some years older than me. And so through the years, continuing even to most recently, Jerry'd always ask, how's your brother Gene doing? Yeah, I remember that big game he played in. And I get these random pictures in my mail, because he'd find something. And he was so good at keeping people up and wanting to know what's going on. And he was always just one of the happiest. Even if I did something I knew he probably didn't like, maybe if a vote up here, it didn't bother him at all. It didn't faze him. He liked us all as well. Don't roll your eyes. But he never said it, but he still cared, he moved on if there was something. Because we had a few times we probably did not agree on some things. But, he was just always this person who was just so happy when you saw him and wanted to talk. And I think it was early last week at Ramon's when I ran into Mary and Jerry sitting at the table. And I sat and, talked for a little bit, and I really wish I had stayed and talked longer, and because you just never know. But he was a wonderful man, my brother, Gene sends his, regrets and very sorry to hear that this has happened. But I'll always remember a lot of those. In fact, I probably still have some of the pictures that he sent to me. So he certainly will be missed in the community. And I think Rex pretty much covered everything, because Rex probably got in trouble a few times. Yeah. It's good to have a lawyer on your side.
Advice a couple times. But anyway, I know the family has to get to an appointment, but I appreciate you guys coming down here. You bet. So our deepest regrets, and thank you and I think the big thank you goes, thanks for sharing them with the county for as many years as you did. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will adjourn in Jerry's honor today.
Adjourn now.
So we have quite a few items on the agenda that would normally come up first, which is the consent agenda, et cetera, but we do have a time certain, so I'm going to jump to that because we have Graham Naus, who's the Executive Director of the California State Association of Counties, here to join us, and I don't know how long he can stay. Welcome, Graham. And before that, I just want to very quickly, as a matter of process, ask the CAO if there's any changes to the agenda or modifications.
There are no modifications to the agenda, and Deputy CAO Sean Quincy will introduce the CSAC item.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Sean.
Good morning, Chair Fennell, members of the board. Each year, the California State Association of Counties holds a competition honoring some of the most innovative and cost-effective programs that are being put on by counties. In the past, Humboldt County has been able to be honored with some of these awards. Some of the past programs that we have been honored to win the awards for have been a program called Reprogramming Corrections in the Sheriff's Office, the Track and Trace program, our Budget Roadshow, All Hands Training Day, a Tsunami Zone app, a innovative program by Child Support, wherein they collected, they held collections for small counties, and DHHS Mobile Outreach. This year, we were honored to win awards for two programs, one put on by Planning and Building, and one put on by the University of California Cooperative Extension Program. And as you said, we have the Executive Director of CSAC, a Humboldt native, Graham Naus, here to introduce the programs.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Good morning, everyone. I'm Graham Naus. I'm the Executive Director of CSAC. I do have Humboldt County roots, so thrilled to be back here. I went to elementary school and junior high here in Eureka, actually, a number of years ago. So thrilled to be back here and to talk about innovation and the great work that's occurring in Humboldt County. At CSAC, we have the great honor of representing every county in the state, all 296 county supervisors, including the 5 of you. And we do so in a variety of ways. We do so, our core is around advocacy, ensuring that there's a strong county voice in Sacramento and also in Washington, D.C. But we also do so in terms of an education role. We have a foundation that houses our CSAC Institute, which we keep bringing further north. It is currently in Mendocino Lake, so we're almost here. and we've been moving up the state as part of our 5 campuses to ensure that there's opportunities for leadership and professional development for county staff. So we have that that is in place, and we also take pride in trying to tell the county story in terms of the great work that's occurring in counties across the state. And that's where this Challenge Award program originated, trying to identify those innovative practices that are occurring in counties. They are occurring in every single corner of California, but not all of them hit the same bar. And so in our Challenge Award program over this past year, we had 284 entries, and with those entries, there are a total of 16 Challenge Awards, 2 of which are coming to Humboldt County today, and so that's a pretty remarkable achievement, and it really highlights the culture that this board and your CAO have set right here in Humboldt County. So I want to begin with the Reducing Cannabis Impacts Program, which is a state-of-the-art strategy that's focused on ensuring that the identification of unpermitted cannabis cultivations in the county. And so instead of sending staff out to cover the 4,000 square miles of the county to identify those that are not in compliance, this is an innovative, cost-effective model to ensure compliance. And I know there's a video, and so I'm going to ask Ryan to cue that up.
The Humboldt Environmental Impact Reduction Program is an effort to efficiently identify illegal cannabis cultivation sites using satellite imagery.
We can identify them, notice them about the violation that exists on the property so that they can remove it and restore the property to its intended or permitted use.
Most of the sites could never be seen from a road, could never be seen from a public viewpoint. The ones that are often are behind 3 to 4 or more locked gates. So there's no way to get there. If cannabis is going to be a legal and regulated product, the illegal portion of it needed to be addressed, and it needed to be addressed in a proactive way.
To do it from space is just almost a no-brainer. From desktop computers, we can monitor the entire expanse of the county. We can assess whether the structures are permitted, if there's tree removal and grading, whether that's been permitted, and very efficiently assess whether there's violations on that particular property or whether it's permitted activity.
When we had identified an appropriate cluster, we would write up what we call a notice to abate, which is a notice to tell the property owner they need to stop what they're doing, and then a notice of violation, which informs them that if they don't stop, they're going to be subject to fines and penalties. And the fines and penalties for a cannabis violation is $10,000 a day per violation.
The unregulated production is outside of land use ordinances, so there's increased environmental impacts.
Those places, they aren't caring about the land, because if you have a levee on your land, I mean, if there's something you want to pass on for generations to come, you would care about those levees.
Bad road construction, poor stream crossings, failed culverts, poor impoundments, badly engineered ponds, all those kind of things tend to contribute to an already very high level of sediment in our watershed.
We offer them a compliance agreement and give them a certain amount of time to complete that.
Finding them, noticing them, and fixing them can be done in a very condensed amount of time.
The Humboldt Environmental Impact Reduction Program pays for itself. The ability to pay for it comes through charging people who are in violation the cost of administering the program. And that really is what it has to come down to.
To notice the big environmental damages, I think satellite imagery is a good thing to use. It slows down a lot of the legal cultivation facilities.
To be able to collect the evidence we need to collect and tell the story over periods of time, satellite imagery allows us to be able to document that evidence.
So for a creative approach to ensuring compliance with Proposition 64 and your local cannabis ordinance, I'd like to congratulate this Board of Supervisors and John Ford, your Director of Planning in the Building Department. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Noss, for this tremendous award that you've provided to us. As mentioned, my name is John Ford. I'm with I'm Director of Planning and Building. And really what I want to do is first thank CSAC and Mr. Noss for giving us this award, but also bring the staff up and acknowledge them. But before I do that, I really want to say a few words about what this program is and some of the struggles that we've been having, particularly in light of some of the comments that have been made. Humboldt County's use of satellite imagery to enforce cannabis is appreciated by some, and it's severely disliked by many. Those in the permitted cultivation community appreciate what the county's doing. Those in the business community, those that in the construction community that often have to comply with regulations and comply with laws appreciate what the county is doing. Citizens within the county of Humboldt that see the county is enforcing the law appreciate what the county is doing. There are those, though, who are less appreciative of the county's use of satellite imagery. A letter appeared in the media yesterday which had some interesting allegations in it, and I would like to respond to some of those comments as a way of setting the record straight. The fact is, imagery does capture a large number of greenhouses, but that's not the whole story. One of the things that you saw in the video that was correctly pointed out is that we can use different imagery from different years and see what has transposed during that period of time. One of the things that you start to see is that there is cultivation going on the site over a prolonged period of time. One of the things that happened during the heyday of Proposition 215 was that people started coming out of the little pockets and started clearing areas and putting in greenhouses. There is sometimes a long history of cultivation. Greenhouses appear. And then the thing that starts to happen is that those cultivation sites all begin to look fairly ubiquitous. There have been very few cases of false positives. There are 2 or 3 I'm aware of. One of the most drastic was a very large concentration of greenhouses that would look like a greenhouse grow site. It was actually somebody who grows for farmers market. They're a commercial vegetable and fruit grower. They came in and showed us receipts from many years of having sold in a farmer's market. They were not charged any administrative costs. They were not charged any fines or penalties. That was completely dropped. I would also like to point out that there was some language used that the staff threatens families with enormous penalties, and this is really inflammatory. Because the fact of the matter is that there are fines associated with it, but the fines aren't a necessary outcome. Because if a property owner on a small site can stop cultivating, remove the cannabis infrastructure, and restore the site, there are no fines and penalties associated with that. In some circumstances, the amount of grading that's been done, the amount of infrastructure that's on the site, that cannot be done within 10 days. That's a scenario in which a compliance agreement is offered. In those situations, the compliance agreement does carry a 1-day fine with it. But it also is important to keep in mind that those scenarios where there has been significant grading and there's significant infrastructure on the site that cannot be removed within 10 days. A comment was also made that people who went into the county code enforcement unit about notices went in without legal representation, and they were subjected to high-pressure bullying and threats of penalties amounting to seizure of their homes, causing some to agree to thousands of dollars of fines as they were so frightened. This has no bearing in fact, and frankly, I find it offensive to say that our staff bullies anybody. In a moment, I'm going to give you some statistics that demonstrate just how wrong that is. But first, it's important to keep in mind is the code enforcement unit does not have the ability to seize anybody's home. It's an interesting comment that people who have come in without legal representation being bullied. Because on the other hand, the thing that we find happening frequently is people coming in and saying, you know, my attorney told me not to talk to you, but I don't know what's going on and I'm trying to figure it out and I want this thing resolved. And in most of those situations, if not all of them, they do get resolved, sometimes without fines and penalties. So, here are some of the actual numbers that tell a far different story from the negative scenario that's being painted out there. There are 972 error cases that have been sent notices of violation and notices to abate. 552 of those have been completely resolved. 230 of those, or 230 of the 972, are in the process of being resolved. The property owners entered into a compliance agreement. So that's 752 either resolved or on their way to being resolved of 972 cases. That, by my math, is 77% of all cases that are sent out are either resolved or in the process of being resolved. This is the statistic I like even more. Because of the 972, 463 of those were resolved without any fines or penalties. That's 47% of all of them, all notices that were sent out were resolved by fines and penalties. That's perhaps not a good statistic, because if you compare that number to the 522 that have been resolved, that means 88% of all cases that have been resolved without fines and penalties. Can I say that again? 88% of all cases that have been resolved without fines and penalties. That does not sound like bullying to me. Pardon me if I'm a little defensive. There have been 12 liens approved. Those have been brought before the Board of Supervisors. There are 28 instances where there has been no contact from a property owner. There are 74 cases where there are property owners that have more than one property in violation. There are 10 property owners who have received more than one notice on the same property. Of those who have ignored and continued to cultivate, or have been visited by the sheriff and or received a notice and were re-noticed and began to recultivate again after being sent a notice, there are 136. So 136 of those who received notices started to cultivate again even after they received a notice. I'd just like to point out that this last year we sent out about 456 letters. They were warning letters to people that indicated that we had identified that it looked like they were cultivating. This last year, we decided to follow up on a recommendation that came to us in a Redway meeting, which is to send notices or send letters, warning letters, to smaller cultivators rather than to send notices. So we made a demarcation line of 6,000 square feet. We did not notice anybody with a cultivation area of less than 6,000 square feet in the last grow season. Everybody that was less than 6,000 square feet that we identified, we sent a warning letter to. There was a significant backlash to that. People were upset about that. But on the contrary, I want to talk about something else that happened. Some people took those letters, put together applications, and applied for permits. I looked and reviewed at one of those this last week, and the compliance agreement for that is ready to be signed. So somebody actually took that warning letter, applied for a permit, and they're about to get issued a permit in time to cultivate this year. They are a smaller grower. So maybe it goes without saying that enforcement is a difficult enterprise. One of the things that staff does is that they send out notices to people who aren't happy to receive them. They're often confronted by people who aren't happy to have to talk to the county. But yet, day in and day out, they try to work with people to achieve the best possible result. Can I reiterate, 88% of the resolved cases had no fines and penalties. Humboldt County entered into the cannabis legalization process as a proactive leader. Unfortunately, the needed corollary to permitting and legalization is enforcement. And here again, Humboldt County has taken a leadership role. There are many other counties, especially in light of the CSAC award, that are now calling us, talking to us. We're sharing information with them, helping them to make their program better. They're helping us to make our program better. Just in closing, I'd like to say that leaders will always be criticized by people who do not have the same vision for the future. The future of Humboldt County is a thriving and legal industry. I'd like to again thank Mr. Knoss and CSAC for providing this award, and if it would be okay, I'd like to introduce the staff that is here that have really worked hard on this award, and I think they probably are occupying most of the rear row, and also standing in the back is John Wynn with the County Council's office, who keeps us walking a pretty tight path, and we appreciate his leadership in that. Would you all please stand up? So, and one of the things that I'd like to say is that I did ask the whole staff to come, and partly because a lot of times the AIR program gets a lot of notoriety, but it's the people that are also doing the day-to-day code enforcement work that allows the other folks to come to focus on the AIR program. And so that team back there works very hard to work together. And I'd just like to call out Bob Russell, who brought to this county a unique set of skills and background that greatly aided in this, and without his training, background, skill set, this probably would not have been possible, and I know he doesn't want this kind of notoriety, but it's important to call him out, and also Brian Bowes, who was there on the ground floor to really develop this program. And so just want to say that this is really a staff effort. I get to stand up here as the director, but the people standing back there do the work every day. They talk to people every day. They make this work every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Ford. It's too late.
All right, congratulations. Next we'll move to a challenge award that hits one of the top priorities in this state, certainly one of the top priorities of ours and many other counties, which is using a prescribed fire to build resiliency in the community. Emergency management and resiliency, top priority certainly of CSAC, and I'm delighted to see Humboldt County taking a significant lead in this area. Humboldt County's Prescribed Burn Association, the first of its kind west of the Rockies, the right side of the Rockies, is a collaboration between landowners, nonprofits, volunteer firefighters, and other community members who work to carry out prescribed burns on private land. Since the association was created in 2016, they've hosted 25 workshops, 15 live fire trainings in Humboldt County and throughout the state, and safely burned more than 1,000 acres in Humboldt County to support responsible forest management and reduce wildfire risk. The association has also been able to build a strong working relationship with CAL FIRE, which also conducts prescribed burns on private lands in Humboldt. And so for this ongoing, proactive, collaborative approach to reducing wildfire risk and emphasizing responsible forest management, I'm thrilled to present this Challenge Award for the Using Prescribed Fire to Build Resiliency program to Jana Valakovic. I almost got it right.
Valakovic.
She's going to correct me, thank you. I do this every time. Valakovic. Is that better? Yes. Can I just say Jana?
Yeah.
Is that cool?
She's like Cher.
Jana Valakovic, the director of the UC Cooperative Extension here in Humboldt. Congratulations, Jana. Yeah, Ryan, can you cue the video?
There's a lot of interest right now in prescribed fire, which is the use of fire to meet certain objectives like fuels reduction or habitat restoration. Private landowners in Humboldt County really want to be able to use this tool.
Fire is something that we're all culturally connected to, and it's something that we're working to give back to the people.
Jeff and I both work for University of California Cooperative Extension, which is a partnership between the University of California and the County of Humboldt. So we're actually a county department. We started the Humboldt County Prescribed Burn Association. The effort that we have here in Humboldt is the first of its kind in the West.
The group of neighbors helping neighbors treat fuels and invasive species, any aspect of their land that they would like to see improved by using fire.
This is pretty much unheard of in the Western United States. Prescribed fire is mostly used by government agencies who have fire programs, and the landowner's been largely left out.
The fire's gotten bigger, hotter, more damaging, more dangerous. We're not really going to put out all the fires. We're going to have to live with fire. The idea that you could have a rural property and fire could go through and not really damage what is important to you. That's the goal. You know, everybody's trying to get there.
For the last 2 years we've been doing this program, we've burned almost 1,100 acres.
Some people with small acreage just wanting to protect their homes to people with very large acreage wanting to improve grazing for cattle or timber production.
We want this group to be volunteer-based, community-based, a model that is very cheap. And so the burn today isn't costing a lot. These people are volunteering their time, but they're also getting training. We're going to have a barbecue. It's really got this grassroots feel to it.
Really great experience for volunteer fire departments. We have a lot of new trainees who maybe have never actually worked right next to a fire. And so it's excellent training for them, you know, just to get comfortable working with fire.
I think we are building community, and we're using fire that's usually so scary. We're using it as this really positive, synergistic thing.
But what I love about the community aspect of the Prescribed Burn Association, these general groups from different sides of the community, cattlemen and dairymen, the marijuana growing community, traditional agriculturalists, the environmental community are gaining patience for each other. They're able to sit and have coffee, you know, at the beginning before a burn. It opens the door for good, honest, healthy communication between different groups that otherwise wouldn't be happening.
We use our program to train people, to inspire people, to empower people, because that's the only way we'll get to a scale that's meaningful at addressing the wildfire problem.
It's a tool, and we all have a right to use it as Californians.
Now we're seeing other parts of California latching on the idea and trying to do the same thing, which is really exciting.
This is allowing people to get together and help each other out. It's great.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jana Valakovic.
Thank you, Graham. This is too funny. Well, this is a tremendous recognition, and I'm really sorry that my colleagues Lania Quinn-Davidson and Jeff Stackhouse couldn't be here this morning to share in this honor. Lania is actually giving a presentation on a national webinar today specifically on this topic, so she's doing the good work and continuing to spread the message. So thank you, Madam Chair, thank you, board, thank you, staff. It's really a pleasure to be here. I just have a couple of thoughts just to reflect on, what's happening here and the leadership that's coming from Humboldt, and what does that mean for where we're going as a state, and what are some of the pivotal moments that have come about. And I also really want to say that the CSAC team did a tremendous job with that video. It was really fun to see it all come together. So, why is it that we burn? What is the purpose of putting fire on the ground in an intentional way? This is something that we hear mostly about fear and risk and liability and concern. But we burn for fuels reduction, which is obvious, but we also burn for habitat improvement. We have lost so many important habitat communities because of the exclusion of fire over the last 100 years, and we need to recognize that. We burn to control invasives, some of the lowest cost and cheapest alternatives for managing invasive species. We burn for restoration. And we also burn for cultural reasons and cultural benefits. So thinking about, these improved ecosystem services, what does it take to get there? And we have to remember that our landscape is really adapted, in many respects dependent upon fire, but it's something that we've excluded for more than 100 years from our communities. So how do we get to the pace and scale issue around fire? For the last several decades, fire has been something for the professionals only. And it's really interesting. I've been thinking about this within my own organization and my own thought process over the last several years. How is it that we got to this tool that really, only a certain group of people can wear if they have a uniform on? Why is it that we've moved to that place? It's very disempowering. But it's not always been that way, and we really need to remember that. And we need to figure out how to put it back in our toolbox as managers, as landowners, as resource managers. And that's what this program is really doing. So the mission of Cooperative Extension in partnership with Humboldt as well as Del Norte County really is to help people help themselves. And I think this program emulates that better than almost anything we're doing right now. We're here to help with knowledge, skills, and resources so that folks can be the best stewards that they can be. And within that, I want to reflect for a moment to say that Cooperative Extension has had a long history with fire. One of the things that we first did as an organization in the 20s was help build the Rural Volunteer Fire Department movement. We went around from community to community and brought small apparatus and taught people how to fight fire, because that was the mode and the thinking at the time, that we didn't have the resources to be able to control fire. We did not have CAL FIRE at that time. Our firefighting force were communities. They were rural volunteer communities, and we organized them into volunteer fire departments. So now we're bringing fire back in a different way, which is kind of humbling and good to think about. About 10 years ago, a group of us started the Northern California Prescribed Fire Council, which is different than the Prescribed Burn Association. And I couldn't have imagined that in 10 years we'd be where we are today, that you all are comfortable using the word, that it's part of our vocabulary. I mean, literally 10 years ago, people were just saying, no, we can't even talk about this. But now we're hearing great leadership from CAL FIRE about how to restore this tool within their agency, how to empower unit chiefs to be able to make the decision to put fire on the ground. We're hearing in the legislature, we've seen major legislative changes in the last 3 years really significantly supporting this effort. And we hear among the landowner community, and landowners demanding it and trying to figure out how are they going to bring this tool back to themselves. So now, as I've got this great team who've been thinking about how to do this, they took a trip to Nebraska. And they went and learned from a ranching community in Nebraska with the Prescribed Burn Association that they have there. They brought a local rancher, Dean Hunt, with them. This was Jeff Stackhouse, Lania Quinn-Davidson, as well as Matt Cocking from the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And they came back from that trip inspired and ready to figure out how to apply it here. So that's the first in the West. And within that, we heard some of these amazing statistics about how much work has been able to be happening. But think about this, 15 live fire trainings. I mean, that's so cool. I mean, I can't believe that we've made it to that place where we're really saying, here, we trust you. Let's give a little bit of, training and guidance, and we're going to figure out how to do this. Do you remember when we did that, Estelle? Yeah, it was great. And so, the focus is really about how do we train, how do we inspire, how do we empower our communities to be able to do the good work that they want to do. And I really want to underscore the point that Jeff made in the video about this cultural connection and breaking down these cultural barriers. I find so amazing when you show up for one of these burns, you've got, folks in their little camps, so you've got the volunteer fire department folks that stand over there, and then you've got CAL FIRE standing over here, and then you've got these landowner groups, and they're of different factions. And by the end of the day, we're one big team. And we all recognize the strength and power that we have in working together. And all of a sudden, when we're hanging out over the celebratory moment at the end of the day, we've made friendships. We've made connections that would not have happened any other way. So really, it's uniting. Fire is uniting. It's not dividing, and it's incredibly nonpartisan, which is exciting in this world because we spend a lot of time thinking about that, partisan issues. What's amazing about this program is that it's now being emulated in multiple counties. So we're hearing and seeing development in Sonoma, Plumas, Santa Barbara, Mendocino, Butte, Nevada, Tehama, Placer, Shasta, Siskiyou, and San Benito. And that's all because of the leadership of Lainey Quinn Davidson and Jeff Stackhouse. And they've been on the road this year, going around doing training after training to help communities figure out how to do this. And in fact, yesterday I got an email from Plumas County from a colleague there, and said, a year and 1 month, Lania and Jeff, you came to Quincy to talk about prescribed burn associations. And last weekend, the Plumas Underburn Cooperative pulled off their very first own burn. And this one is where they put the burn plan together, all the permitting, and the planning and coordination with the volunteer fire department, and they had a very successful burn. And so they were writing to say thank you. And that's so exciting. So thank you, Graham. Thank you, CSAC, for recognizing this. Thank you, the board for giving us support. I want to acknowledge those of you that also serve on the Air District and how important it is that you all have worked so assertively and effectively to think about the costs of permitting and the cost of the air fees and how to facilitate this and navigate it so that we can get to the pace and scale issue, so that we can get to resiliency, and so that we can put tools back in the landowner's toolbox and do good work. So thank you very much.
Congratulations. Madam Chair, if I may, first to underscore how Jana's comments and the innovation that's occurring in Humboldt County highlight the amount of talent that you have at your fingertips here in the models that are being created here in Humboldt that are being distributed across the state where other counties are learning. I have one more thing that I would like to do, which is actually a bit of a surprise. To get there, I want to highlight two issues that we are working on. One of them is resiliency that Jana was just talking about, and ensuring that communities are protected from wildfires, protected from floods, protected from a potential tsunami in a way that fits with what their local priorities are. It's a core priority of ours. We're pushing it in Sacramento, we're pushing it in DC, and we're doing it at your urging and the urging of your colleagues across the state. So that's certainly one of them. The other is related to homelessness and housing. It's our #1 priority. We are pushing like crazy on it. We're working with the governor. In fact, we're meeting with him in a couple of weeks. We're working with the speaker. In fact, we're meeting with him tomorrow, and I'll bring Supervisor Bass down to join me for that. We were meeting with the White House. We met with the president's homeless czar. We are pushing like crazy to ensure that local communities have the resources and the authority and the flexibility to put things in place that make sense, that fit your community, that provide opportunities for folks, that are about partnership between what happens at the local level and the responsibility that needs to rest at the state level and at the federal level. And so we will continue to push to do that. But in everything we do, I can talk all day long, and my team can talk all day long, but the most important asset that we have is you. It's the supervisors. Your elected voice, and when you take that risk of temporarily leaving your community and coming to Sacramento or coming to DC, it is your voice that makes the most impact on what we do. And so I want to thank all of you for the commitment that you have made to your community and for bringing that outside, for leveraging the power of your community across the state and across this country. And I want to particularly thank Supervisor Bass, who has served as our president last year, sits as our past president this year, has been a CSAC officer for the past 4 years, and has answered the call and driven down the 101 over and over and over again to ensure that this community can leverage its strengths, that your voice is far greater than the number of folks that reside here in Humboldt County. And so huge thanks to you all for that, for this community for that, because it is immensely powerful for us to be able to make progress on behalf of your communities. And we can't do that also without having a remarkable CAO in this county who is running the county operation in a way that's a model across this state. So with that, and Supervisor Bass will remember this, I have a decorative gavel. Please don't use it, it's glass. But I have a decorative gavel to present to Supervisor Bass for her years as an officer at CSAC. Congratulations. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today and for the great work that you do on behalf of this community. It's a marvelous community all up and down this county. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you very much, Graham. Really, really, really appreciate your work also. So don't be shy about that. It takes a lot to, as they say, herding cats. You've got a lot of supervisors to work with and a lot of counties, a lot of issues that we all bring to you. And we really, really appreciate your dedication to serving the counties of the state of California. Thank you very much. So anything to say from the honoree? I mean, everybody else got to speak. Maybe not as much as Jana and John, but...
No, and I'm thinking, actually, I know there's members of the public who'd like to probably comment.
absolutely, yeah.
And then we can come back and...
Okay, you got it.
But I've been reunited with this gavel, so thank you, Graham.
Thank you. Okay, so I will open it up to public comment at this time. Anyone like to speak on either of these issues?
Ken Sawatsky, the first thing I wish to acknowledge is the human race is the only invasive species on this planet. I always find it interesting that this particular race seems to think it's going to have any kind of a major effect regarding what Mother Nature's going to do. It's fun to play with fire. It's interesting. We think we can make a big difference with that. I have no problem with attempting it. It's the term of not leaving it to the professionals. Of course, I strongly only approve the professionals overseeing the other people accomplishing their goals they want. Maybe that was, maybe I misunderstood that one. I came back from Mexico, and a very interesting trip this time. I cut firewood down there, and fire is a major concern in Mexico. They burn along all their roads in certain areas. This year, they probably are going to have major problems because they've had way more rain and there's more combustible, same as we have a problem here. Went out to cut firewood to our spot where we go, and the largest mesquite tree, probably had stood at 80 feet, was now standing at 15 feet. Mother Nature had gone ahead and done a single lightning strike on that tree and blown it to pieces. It's amazing the power that Mother Nature has, and if we think we can circumvent that process, we're fools. So I wish to caution people, as far as thinking you're going to make a difference in this. I strongly applaud what John Ford has done as far as trying to rectify the impact that the human race, the invasive species, has had on Mother Nature's lands out there. I look forward to seeing, hopefully, CSAC and these other organizations providing the tens of millions of dollars that we need to restore those sites. They're not being restored from what I've seen. You fly over them, they're still there. They haven't been reforested. Whatever we can do is great. It's kind of like the one going right over the top of Berry Summit there. I think the skeleton's still there from that one. We got to keep working on those, and I strongly applaud what John's done there. And I know he and I have conversations. We have angst from time to time. But that is really making a difference. I also applaud the fact that he didn't go after the smaller growers, the 6,000 feet, and are allowing them to come to whatever they can do. As far as I'm concerned, the 2,000 footers, unless there's egregious things, shouldn't even have to have permits. That's something I'd like to see changed in some of this process. And as far as looking toward the future of this being our future, I still will say this may be the last year for a great deal of your growers that are here. You still have a lot of them out there on these interim or temporary permits until they come in compliance. And of course, there was a major ruling regarding HumMap on the lawsuit, and I suppose you're probably going to try and appeal that one, but I think you'll be wasting your time. And taxes and everything are based on this. So thank you for my opportunity to speak on this, and thank you for all that you guys do out there.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this issue?
Good morning. I'm Scott Greason, Conservation Director for Friends of the Eel River. I've appeared before this board many times to ask you to do more to protect our watersheds and fisheries. I'm really delighted to be here today to thank you for your efforts to protect what makes this county such an extraordinary place. Both of these awards are important and well-deserved in my estimation. As we all know, the Humboldt Hills have offered unparalleled opportunities to hide pot production. Remote sensing has made it possible to detect and monitor activities that would otherwise be effectively invisible. And as we all know, the green rush led to some really serious impacts on watershed health and species like coho and steelhead, which are already reeling from the impacts of the 20th century. Significant unpermitted grading, poorly built roads, and stream crossings, like John Ford was talking about, are key sources of sediment that's one of the biggest threats to recovery for coho and steelhead in our watersheds. I do want to say, though, as important as the cannabis enforcement program is, I think the prescribed fire program may be even more important. The Eel River watershed is about 90% private land, and as I think we all recognize at this point, we can't keep fire off that landscape. The question is going to be whether we learn to live with it. And the work that folks have been doing around Orleans has now grown into a really important regional and statewide and now national movement. And frankly, the leadership that the county and Jana's team has shown here is absolutely essential. And everything you can do to help her, please do it. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you. Any further comment on these items? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any Supervisor Bass?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm really appreciative of Graham coming up to Humboldt County where he does have deep roots. And one thing I'll say first before I talk about the awards itself is I think the organization is so fortunate to have Graham as the executive director now, because not only, you know, he doesn't sleep, you know, he's always on the move, always trying to make sure things are moving in the right direction. But he is one of the few people that I think has been able to try to pull, you know, keep the rural, urban, suburban group together. And it's not easy because there are a lot of differences. But he does have, you know, the rural background. He's also been in Placer County. But I think he has, I think he's done amazing work as far as making the group more cohesive. So I wanted to thank you for that. I don't know anyone else who could have pulled that off. So thank you. And then in regards to the different, our different programs, that one, I think is great. You know, years ago, or a few years ago, we had several programs win. And what I'd like to remind all the departments to do is to send something in. You know, we have a lot of great programs we do, and we don't think that, you know, we don't really think anything of it, but others can learn from our programs. So not only can we, you know, we can, you know, highlight what we do well, but we can help other counties. And so to me, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the Challenge Awards. And I get to be a judge also, but I do not get to judge the rural counties, just so everybody knows. That wouldn't be fair. So anyway, I appreciate CSAC and the program, and thank you, Graham, like I said, for retrieving this. It was kind of hard to bring back in my suitcase when I got it, so. That's pretty much it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and congratulations, Supervisor Bass, and thank you for your work. Any further comment on this item? Seeing none, I just want to say, sorry, Supervisor Madrone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very brief. I just want to thank everybody involved in both these projects. They've made a big difference, so thank you.
Supervisor Wilson.
I'll just make a motion that we receive this award report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. And I do want to say very briefly, just listening to John and Jana speaking, we have some very, very dedicated people here in the county. I mean, both of you, very dedicated to the mission and the vision, and that's what we're all looking at, is a clean environment and a healthy future for Humboldt County. So thank you very much. Now we'll go back to the, oh, did I call the vote? Yes, I did. Let's go back to the beginning here. And we have no modifications to the agenda. We do have the consent calendar.
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, but we do have some proclamations. Supervisor Bohn?
I don't know if anybody's here from the logging conference, but sit down, Surveyor. You're coming up.
I'm going to do yours, Ron.
My God, it's like a blind dog in a meat house over there waiting to get up here. I do want to recognize the Redwood Region. It's the 82nd annual the Redwood Region Logging Conference, and we talk about all these things that built Humboldt County, but if you want to look back, it's the logging industry and the timber industry. So they're going to be 19th, 20th, and 21st. They will be in Ukiah for their annual logging conference, and we are recognizing it with this proclamation. I make sure that it'll get to them. So again, thanks for recognizing them.
Thank you, Supervisor Bohn. And we do have another proclamation, and this one is in honor of National Surveyors Week. And I would like to invite our county surveyor, Ronald Garton. Oh, we will do yours. Welcome, Ron. I'm going to read the proclamation first. Whereas land surveying has long been a rich part of our history and an important piece in the development of Humboldt County and the United States, and whereas some of the most famous land surveyors include George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Daniel Boone, Abraham Lincoln, and Benjamin Banneker, a free ex-slave who became part of the crew that surveyed the original borders of Washington, D.C., and whereas land surveyors use specialized equipment to measure and mark property boundaries, calculating the dimensions, elevations, shapes, and contours of sites for public, government, and private development, and whereas land surveyors must conduct surveys and perform mathematical calculations with a high level of accuracy, a land surveyor role involves examining historical property records and maps to determine the legal boundaries of a specific piece of land. And whereas the Humboldt chapter of the California Land Surveyors Association has been instrumental in identifying and preserving historical land boundaries through monument preservation surveys and obtaining private collections of historic maps and survey records. And whereas the Humboldt County Surveyor has been awarded Surveyor of the Year by the County Engineers Association of California for work on the County Surveyor's Library, online map index, mapping standards, and monument preservation. And whereas the Humboldt County Surveyor's Office strives to provide superior customer service to county departments, the land development community, and the general public, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the Humboldt County proclaims the week of March 15th through March 21st, 2020 as National Surveyors Week in the County of Humboldt.
Madam Chairman, Board of Supervisors, my bosses. Very nice to speak with you today and represent the land surveyors in Humboldt County. And as this is a nationwide week celebrating land surveyors, very proud of the history that surveyors preserve regarding the history of land boundaries in Humboldt County and in the United States. Would like to give a couple shout outs here. First and foremost to the California Land Surveyors Association of Humboldt County chapter. They have been the stalwarts, absolutely instrumental in securing thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of pages and maps of unrecorded documents that are in my county surveyor's library that we are attempting to scan them all, index them, and make them available, which they are available to the public viewing at any time, and also make them available online. I'd also like to give a shout out to the Director of Public Works, Tom Matson, the Deputy Director of Land Use, Bob Bronkel. Without their support, the innovations that we've made in the county to provide better customer service would not be possible. And of course to you for your continued support. And again, a big thanks to CLSA. They have just been fantastic to work with and have provided not only historic records, but a lot of the blood and sweat equity that it's taken to reach the milestones we have. So thank you very much for your continued support. And we've also done a little we've done a little rebranding here in the County Surveyor's Office, so you can refer to us as Humco Surveys, and you're going to see us around. We're going to be in your face, and we'll definitely be there at budget time.
In your yellow and your orange hats.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ronald, and congratulations. How's my hair? Thanks, Ron, that was great. And again, here we go, you know, very, very proud of the people who serve Humboldt County. We're just the face of it, but it's a very large number of people who do a lot of great work. Thank you, Ron. So, and a proclamation from Supervisor Benz.
It's on all of it at the end. We're still right? Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And this proclamation, I think our last one of the day, is in regards to Arbor Day, so come on up. Welcome, yeah, Terry, nice to see you. Thanks for sitting through all. It's been a fun day, though, I have to say. All right, so whereas Arbor Day is celebrated nationally as well as in California, where it starts on the birthday of Luther Burbank, famed California horticulturalist who produced hundreds of plants and trees that have contributed to the natural splendor and food production in our state. There's a lot of whereases here, though. Whereas Arbor Week has the involvement of Keep Eureka Beautiful, which has planted over 900 street and front yard trees to improve the quality of life in Eureka. And whereas trees help maintain or increase property values and attract business and new residents. And whereas trees slow traffic, encouraging residents, young and old, to bicycle and walk. Whereas trees can reduce the amount of energy consumed in heating and cooling buildings. And whereas trees help reduce greenhouse gas emissions by sequestering carbon, they also reduce air pollution. They protect and purify our coast and bay by reducing surface runoff. And whereas trees provide essential habitat for birds and other wildlife, now therefore be it resolved that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims March 7th through March 14th, 2020 as California Arbor Week and urge all citizens to observe and celebrate the week by planting trees for our own benefit and for the benefit of future generations. Yay.
Hi, my name is Tara Friedman, and I'm a member of the all-volunteer citizen group Keep Eureka Beautiful, dedicated to making Eureka a city of tree-lined streets, and this is our brochure. We've planted over 1,100 trees in the past 14 years. We work with homeowners in the city's residential areas to plant trees, either in the sidewalks or in the front yards next to the sidewalk. We also work with businesses to plant trees in front of their stores. Street trees draw visitors and residents alike to commercial areas. Tomorrow, Wednesday, March 11th at 12 noon, we will plant a tree outside Coast Central Credit Union on 4th Street downtown near the corner of F to kick off the new Cultural Arts District Street Tree Plan, which was created in cooperation with the City of Eureka, the Ink People, and Eureka Main Street. The plan proposes to increase the number of street trees in Eureka's newly designated Cultural Arts District in Old Town and Downtown.
Hi, I'm Wendell Schouts. Continuing on, some merchants have been reluctant to have street trees because of concerns that they will obscure signage and facade, but studies have shown that shoppers say they are willing to travel farther and stay longer when visiting retail areas that have trees, as well as to visit more often. Moreover, shoppers rated landscape business districts as being higher in visual quality and comfort, providing more positive interaction with merchants, having higher quality products, and generally appearing to be better maintained. While there is no charge for trees or other planting materials, property owners are asked to pay $75 of the $100 city charges for cutting a sidewalk hole. That hole, by the way, is 3 feet by 6 feet, and they haul away all the concrete. KEB, Keep Eureka Beautiful, picks up the remaining $25. Volunteers from the California Conservation Corps, Kiwanis of Henderson Center, and the Eureka Rescue Mission do the planning along with Keep Eureka Beautiful volunteers. For a number of years, KEB has received a small annual grant to support this work. Given that we buy trees at a deep discount from Pearson's, that we have no office expenses, that we have no paid staff, this allows us to plant up to 100 trees a year. So along with adding beauty, trees improve the environment, help clean our air and water, increase property values. They do slow traffic, reduce energy uses, reduce crime, and create a more livable city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well done. So we have a motion. Oh, public comment on the, sorry, public comment on the consent agenda.
Well, even the city trees are great. I mean, it's a great place to have the trees, and I totally support this group. Maybe we could take on their business model with their low overhead for the county that they have, and maybe that would save us some money. But not only in the city, I think it's important. We're talking about arbor. We're talking about the trees. I probably had 40 hours before I left to go to Mexico in limbing my trees up around my residence and making it fire safe. So this is part of the arbor thing. This is something everybody should be out there doing, especially this year. I feel that there's a very high propensity that we may end up with what we refer to as the blackening or major fires in our area. And Mike will disagree, but hey, karma's karma sometimes. So anyway, I do recommend everybody make their places fire safe the best they can, and to use whatever they can to make the potential loss of property due to these fires getting up into the canopies and it's moving on through our whole area here. So very important issue. Did want to make mention, I see you're reappointing Richard Marks to the NCRA, and Richard is somebody that I feel I can work with. I feel it's important for the people to realize out there that probably the NCRA should have been disbanded and replaced because it no longer is doing what it was set up to do. It has been used for a different process now, and it should be, I don't feel they fall under the agenda they should have. That should have been clarified, bifurcated, and moved on with, and I support that happening. I do have a great amount of angst, and I'm hoping that Supervisor Steve Madrone is the one who can help put together any kind of trails we have. I have very little confidence in the Great Redwood Trail happening. I have great confidence that Doug Bosco is going to get his money back out of it for his train down south, and that's all we're going to see of this project. For those of us who are realists and like to see something like this happen and the great benefit we could have, the acknowledgement does not seem to be there that according to my sources, which have gone directly back to the feds, the Annie and Mary section has been abandoned. You'll see certain areas of that have been fenced off, Contadina wire out there, I think through Arcade in those areas, and I really wish people would take a realistic view about this whole process and understand this. And this has been vetted and checked out by a very competent, probably the most competent title officer in Humboldt County, who followed through on all this, and I think there's major problems here. And unless you can have some peacemakers willing to put this together, such as Steve Madrone, to work with the ranchers and get this through, I see very little chance of the Great Redwood Trail ever coming to fruition. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Any further comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Oops. No. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Passes unanimously. Now we have, sorry.
Yeah. Since we're talking about Arbor Day, I would suggest anybody, I think it's on YouTube, there's a presentation from Humboldt Cider, the founder of Humboldt Cider, on Albert Eder, who actually started out with 600 varieties and ended up with 10,000 different varieties of apples. And besides that, and his strawberries, but the reason I bring it up is Luther Burbank actually traveled to the Mattole Valley twice in the early 1900s to meet with Albert Eder and talk about his crossbreeding and everything else. And for that kind of travel back then, it was kind of beyond. So it's a really cool story, and this his name escapes me from the cider company, but he did so much research because he went to 2 cider conventions, and Albert Eder's name came up at both of them because he has one of the best apples for making cider. So if we're talking Arbor Day, we have our own little history. They actually have back east and in Germany, they have Albert Eder Days. And they have an Albert Eder look-alike contest annually and everything else. So it's a pretty cool thing, for somebody from our little area to get that kind of recognition. So it's good to recognize him on Arbor Day.
Thank you for that, Supervisor Bohn. I think we need to talk to our tourism people about that. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. So,
No, I'm good.
So we're going on now to public comment on non-agenda items, and I have a list here. The first name on the list is Scotty McClure. After that comes Dr. Frankovic. Welcome,
Good morning.
Doctor.
Thank you. So I'm Dr. Terry Frankovich, Health Officer for the county. I was just here today to update the board on an important communicable disease case that we've had recently in our community. My understanding is that the child in question, that the family has communicated that the child has passed, and obviously our hearts go out to the family. So on March 8th, Public Health was notified of a case of Neisseria meningitis infection in a student attending Arcata High School. This is a bacterial infection that is reportable to the state of California. It causes bloodstream infections as well as meningitis or inflammation around the brain. Unlike most types of meningitis, with Neisseria, preventative antibiotics are recommended, so this is an important public health consideration when it occurs. The preventative antibiotics are recommended for close contacts of the individual within a certain time frame of exposure. So just to give you some background, meningococcal meningitis, meningococcal infections overall are rare. Your risk in the general community is about 1 in 100,000. So overall, nationally, there are about 300 cases per year. So it's a very uncommon infection. And in most cases, we never identify a source of that infection. It is a vaccine-preventable disease, not completely, but we have 2 vaccines that cover many of the serotypes of the bacteria that cause infection. So we always encourage, of course, full vaccination for children. Again, most children with this infection present with fever, headache, vomiting, and stiff neck. As a pediatrician for many years, that is something all pediatricians look for. In this case, the child had a very unusual course. When we became aware of the case, the child was being transported out of the area for care. And if it's decided that it is a suspected or confirmed case, we begin contact tracing immediately. Because of the student's particularly unusual clinical course, the treating providers were not particularly considering this diagnosis. He was certainly not a suspected or confirmed case until lab testing, sort of extensive lab testing, came back on March 9th and showed the organism. So upon notification and in consultation with the State Health Department, Public Health drafted a parent letter that went out the next morning, as well as a letter to providers to instruct them on how to provide antibiotics for children for this instance. And we began reaching out to close contacts and household members. Public Health set up nurse lines so that the public could call with questions and concerns. These are often devastating infections, and our thoughts, of course, are with this family. I do want to emphasize that the risk of an additional case in this scenario is extremely low. Antibiotics are provided out of utmost precaution. Thank you.
Doctor, if I may, can you tell us a little bit about what the source of such an infection would be? I mean, it's a bacterial, it's not a virus.
Right. It's a bacterial infection. We do know that some people are able to actually carry this organism in their nasal passages and never have a problem. Why in some individuals, either when they come in contact with the organism or if they've harbored it, become suddenly infected is really unknown, but obviously extremely rare.
Well, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Next on the list for comments on non-agenda items is Gerald Reese. Junior.
Good morning, Supervisors. Gerald Reese Jr. Some of you know me as Gary. I live in McKinleyville, and I'm here to speak to you on a very personal matter, but it does have impact for the wider Humboldt Bay region and Humboldt County governance as well. This relates to an issue that we are experiencing here with my grandson, Timothy. He is a special needs young fellow, 21 years old. Can you hear me? Okay. And we have raised him since he was 1 year old, my wife Dana and I. At age 4, he suffered a bout of meningitis that nearly killed him. It left him with, as a special needs individual, with some neurological issues and left him profoundly deaf. At about a year after the meningitis, we attempted to have him fitted with cochlear implants, but the meningitis had done so much damage that they didn't work. So he remains profoundly deaf, and his mode of communication is ASL. The issue today is that as a result of the meningitis, as a result of multiple mental health disorders and personality disorders, which all devolve back to the meningitis, Timmy has had lots of behavior issues, and as he progressed through adolescence, teenage years, and into young adulthood, he has been in and out of trouble with the law, in and out of residential therapeutic environments, and it has been a struggle to secure adequate levels of services for him. Currently, he sits a few hundred paces from here in maximum security in the correctional facility. He has been there for over 3 months. And at 6.5 weeks ago, Judge Cloran finally ordered a competency evaluation. And as of today, that competency evaluation has not occurred. There's been lots and lots of delays. And I know I'm about out of time, so I'm just going to read you a very short extract from this. Timothy's condition at the jail has intensified and become more acute. His psychosis deepens, and his aggression towards correctional officers amplifies. We don't doubt that he is suicidal. He has told us so. And in his mental state, interaction with guards is misinterpreted. He thinks when they come to get him for visitation that it is a pretense for injuring him. And he told us several weeks ago he doesn't think he's going to survive. He believes he's on death row. So he has suffered a complete nervous breakdown in the correctional facility. Everyone who is involved with this case is aware of this, but yet this process drags on and on and on. It's a violation of his Eighth Amendment constitutional right, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. It's a violation of Americans with Disabilities Acts. So I'm going to wrap this up now. I'm out of time. Supervisor Madrone is well aware of this. He has been very kind and has attempted to intervene for me in this matter. And I hate to use this expression, but certain departments of Humboldt County government are very busy blowing smoke on this issue. I think it's a money issue. So I have here.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. I'm so sorry, but we really need to wrap it up.
Yes. So I'll pass this up to Supervisor Madrone. It's a copy of an email. It's a good synopsis of the issues here. I will leave it to his discretion to share this with you. You may all contact me if you're interested in this. I'm hoping that the Board of Supervisors can work together on this issue and perhaps get some immediate relief for my grandson.
Thank you, Mr. Reese.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Chairperson Estelle Fennell, I want to thank you for giving that person some extra time. I think that's the latitude you have, and I appreciate it when you do it. I did wish to apologize to a lot of people that were here, or some people that were here to speak. And of course, we were an hour and 20 minutes until we started taking public comment. It's a difficult thing, and if there's some way to schedule things a little bit differently, or at least let people know on the agenda somehow that maybe they would have a time specific, maybe somewhere a little further down the line so they could come. And of course, then we also had all the surveyors sitting here. Some of them couldn't stay and things. Anyway, that's just would be appreciated as far as public comment goes. Had a wonderful trip down to Mexico. I found out why the United States is most likely going to fail in many ways. I had the fortunate thing of having somebody mentor me during my potential property acquisitions, which why we transferring many of my assets down there. And one of the most important things I learned was that he could go and you could go to a bank down there and you can put your money in there and on a basis with 24 hours notice, you can pull it out and get 7% return. I mean, that's telling you something is working there that's not working here. Older people went in here when I was young, invested, they were going to have 4%, 5% on their income. We don't get that anymore. We have a very flawed problem here in the United States. Homeless issues. I probably saw 2 people out of all these people, and you would consider a lot of them to be best destitute, actually sleeping out somewhere. I saw more than that coming into Eureka on my way to this meeting today. Something they're doing down there is right. Something we're doing here is wrong. I always go with what works, no reason to reinvent the wheel. We need to find out what it is. So here I come through LAX. I get on the bus to get from Bradley or something up to 7 to go all through. There's not a single person got on or off that bus other than me. Normally there's 30 people getting off and on at each of these stops. That place was dead. I talked to one guy, he talked to people, he said they're 80% down as far as their business. We cannot go much longer with this happening without having our economy totally implode and collapse. People are going to be going without income possibly for 2 or 3 months because we're not to go to work anymore pretty soon. All these things are happening. I'm highly recommending you take your best thing to play duck and cover because this could be the domino that is basically going to tip over the national and worldwide economy. Humboldt County will go with it. Hate to be doom and gloom. I hope I'm not correct on this, but there's a lot of experts out there are feeling the same way. 2,000 point drop in the stock market yesterday. I don't know if it's come back. It was like 200 coming back. I'm pulling out probably about $3 million worth of my family's assets. Parking them, I'll take the 20% loss and not look at taking the next 50%. So I just hope everybody's aware of what's happening out there, and best of luck to everyone.
Thank you. Any further comment on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Excuse me, we only have one other item here today, and it is a number of closed session items. So I will go to our County Council, Billingsley.
Thank you,
Deputy
Chair.
County Council.
It's the intention of the board to meet in closed session on 7 items. The first 4 are conferences with legal counsel pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. The first is blank versus County of Humboldt, 119 CV 3055. The second is blank v. County of Humboldt, case CV 190389. The third is blank versus DiMatteo, case number DR 190340. And the last is Forbes versus County of Humboldt, case number 419 CV 05514 JST. It's also the intention of the board to meet in closed session to perform 2 public employee performance evaluations, one for the position of county counsel, and second for the position of public defender. And lastly, it's the intention of the board to meet in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D due to significant exposure to litigation in one case.
Any comments on these closed session items?
Your clock's an hour off.
I know.
2 hours off in the hallway out there. People were asking, can't the county get the time right? What's going on? So Amy Gate keeps going on. You have 4 litigations here. You have extreme problems as far as whoever is hiring your outside counsels. I've talked to multiple people, and some of you have access to those people, attorneys that are engaged in current litigation against the county. You're nothing but a cash cow, and as long as you keep hanging that monetary tit out there, they're going to keep milking you. You need to make your own decisions based upon your own common sense, not based upon attorneys who do nothing but make more money to drag these things out as long as they can do it and get rich at the county's expense. I don't know what to tell you, but you're going to have to play, and you're going to have to do your own settlements in your own mind, feel what's right and fair. I don't know where you're going with county counsel. I know he has a contract. I also am quite aware that this particular litigation and other ones have unlimited access to funding to drag this thing out and outspend you guys 2 to 1. How would I know that? How would I know that HumMap went ahead and you guys are really in trouble on that HumMap lawsuit? We haven't really had that coming out here, but my understanding is a lot of that's being unwound. The only way you can tax these properties now, is my understanding, is that it's got to be on the grower. It's not on the property owner. If anybody had Brain One, they would have had their permitting separate from what they would have on that. So all these different litigation you have out there floating around are going to ramp up more and more and more. What is it, the 20th time that you've evaluated your county council's performance and all he's doing is cashing a paycheck? You've been sent down a really bad row by Amy Nielsen here, and now we're going to have to pay. And we're going to expect you guys to take that money out of somebody's budget or somebody's thing and expect you to get a competent person in here to help run the county because you don't have one now. That's my opinion, and of course I'm welcome to that. You can welcome, agree, disagree with me. You can provide me information saying I'm incorrect, whatever leeway you have for that. Happy to listen. So far I have seen nothing to indicate that Jeffrey Blank did anything that would enable you to terminate his employment. None of you, I haven't heard anything. There's nothing out there. And some people go wink, wink, nod, nod, or something like that. We can't tell you what's going on. But I've seen and heard of no evidence on any of my sources that indicate anything other than you had a corruption problem with Amy here. She's there to cover it up, and you guys are covering it for it at my expense, being the taxpayer. So thank you very much for hopefully taking care of these problems rather than continuing to spend my money and all of the taxpayers out there. Thank you.
We will now go into closed session. Any idea, Councillor Billingsley, on how long we'll be in there?
Perhaps the CEO can speak to the blank matters. The other ones should probably be about half an hour at most.
I don't anticipate those will take particularly long, maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. So we will strive to be back here by 11:15. And if we're not, it'll be 11:30. Thank you. Okay. So we are back out of closed session, addressed a number of items. Anything to report out, Deputy Counsel?
Yes, Chair. On items K2 through K5 and L1 through L2, there is no reportable action. On item L3, the board voted 4-0 to approve a settlement agreement in the matter of Forbes versus County of Humboldt.
Thank you. We are adjourned in memory of Jeremy Scott.